What happens when one drunk joke about a husband's little bells becomes a line in public paperwork? How can a wife who thought she owned the story watch it flip in a bright courthouse lobby with strangers staring? Can I still call him the villain when his revenge is quiet, legal, and I am the one shaking? My name is Leora Vane, and I still think I was the best thing that ever happened to my husband. I know people would call that arrogant, but they did not see us in the beginning. He was quiet and soft, almost shy, and I was the one with plans. I came from nothing and worked my way into a marketing agency, nice clothes, nice photos, a life that looked good on a screen. He just sat with his computers and his calm voice. I used to find that calm sweet. Later it felt like dead air. That morning in the kitchen, the one I keep replaying now, he was packing our daughter's lunch while I scrolled on my phone. He asked if I could be home by 10 that night. I said there was an event and I would try, but no promises. He asked if I could at least text when I knew. I said he was acting like a jealous teenager, not a grown man. He kept cutting the fruit into little squares, like he did every day, and I told myself this was what was holding me back, this small, quiet life. While he moved around the kitchen, his phone lit up on the counter. I saw a calendar reminder flash for a second. It said, Old Town 10:15 a.m., and then the screen went dark again. I rolled my eyes and joked that he was so boring he even scheduled his errands. He said he just liked to be organized. I said normal people did not put little trips on a calendar like that. He did not argue. He only said he had some personal things to take care of after he dropped Nell at school. On the way out, he asked again if I could be home before she slept, and I told him to stop trying to control me. I said I worked in events, not in a bank, and late nights were part of the job. In my head, I wondered why he could not just be grateful that a woman like me chose him at all. I had the career, the looks, the social life. He had his quiet job and his soft hands and his little careful routines. Respect follows results, I always thought, and I had results. At work that day, I barely thought about Old Town or his little reminder. I sat in the office, answered emails, and texted my sister Rowan about the event that night. She asked if Daniel would go with me. I told her he was too boring and would just stand in a corner. She sent back a laughing message and said I could do better. I agreed. I told her I stayed mostly for Nell in the apartment. I did not call it sacrifice, but that is what it felt like. The event was on a rooftop bar, one of those places with string lights and fake plants. I arrived early to oversee the setup, and that is where I saw Cade again. He did part-time DJ work and helped with the bar. He asked how married life was. I said it was stable but dull, and that my husband had the energy of lukewarm tea. He laughed and said a woman like me needed someone who could match her fire. I said Daniel did not even understand what to do with a woman like me anymore. It felt good when Cade listened with that half smile. During a slow moment, I told Cade that Daniel was scared of everything, even power tools, and that he backed out of a simple shelf project at home. I hinted that he was small in every way, not just in courage. I did not give detail, but I knew Cade understood. He grinned and said, I deserved better. I told myself it was just talk, just blowing off steam. Still, when Cade moved closer to show me something on his phone, I did not move away. I liked that feeling, someone leaning in like I was worth chasing. The event ran late, like I knew it would. At one point, Daniel texted and asked when I would be home. I said I was working and could not keep answering like a teenager checking in with her dad. When the last guests left, Cade offered to walk me to the rideshare spot. On the way down in the elevator, he asked if I was happy in my marriage. I said I was fine but bored, and that boredom was its own kind of pain. I do not need to write down every small thing that happened next. It was enough that I let a line move that should have stayed clear. When I came home, the apartment was quiet. The living room lamp was on, but the TV was off. Daniel was not on the couch waiting, which annoyed me more than it should have. In the bedroom, he was in bed already, turned to the wall. He asked what time it was. I said it was just late and that he should not wait up like a sad dog. He asked if the event went well. I said yes, and that someone like him would never understand how tiring it was to carry everything. He did not push. He only said Nell had asked for me and then gone to sleep. In the bathroom mirror, my makeup was slightly smudged. I fixed it and texted Rowan that the event had been great and that I was exhausted. She asked if Cade was there. I said yes, and I added that at least someone in the room looked at me like I was special. I did not tell her about the way my stomach had fluttered when he did. I called it harmless attention. After I put my phone down, I looked at Daniel in the bed and felt nothing strong, only a dull mix of guilt and annoyance. The next morning, he was up before me, already dressed. He moved around the kitchen like he had decided not to bother me. He asked if I was feeling okay. I said I was tired, that late nights were part of my career. He did not argue. He said he had some things to do in Old Town and would be back by lunch. Later, when I snapped at him for not replying fast to one of my messages, he just listened and did not raise his voice. He let me say every sharp thing and then only nodded and went to help Nell with her homework. That was new. He used to try to fix every mood, follow me from room to room, ask what was wrong. After that Old Town morning, he stopped chasing me in arguments. He went to bed either much earlier or much later than me, on purpose. Sometimes I came in and he was already gone to the guest room, saying he did not want to wake me with his alarms. I told myself he was sulking and being dramatic. I told myself he was showing his true weakness at last. One night, when I walked past the guest room, I saw a light under the door and heard a soft click, like a drawer closing. I pushed the door open a little and saw him at the desk, his laptop screen dim, some papers in a neat stack. He said he was just organizing things for the house. I said nobody our age needed that many lists. He did not answer. He only picked up his phone from the table. The next week at work, I leaned hard into my role as the funny one. It felt good to be around people who laughed when I spoke, instead of watching me in quiet like Daniel did now. In the open plan office, I walked over to a cluster of desks with my coffee, and the others looked up, ready for a story. One of the girls asked how my perfect husband was doing. I told her he was still scared of loud noises and that he probably had a heart attack when the toaster popped. They laughed, and I felt that warm rush in my chest. Someone asked if Daniel ever got angry. I said he did not, that even his temper was small, and they laughed again. I knew I was being mean, but it felt like a game. I said he backed out of a simple shelf project because the drill looked too strong for him. I said he was small in every way that mattered, and I made a small gesture with my fingers that made them howl. It was cruel, but in that room it felt normal, like a bit on a talk show. At my desk, I opened my laptop and connected to the home computer to check a file I needed. For a moment, I saw a spreadsheet that clearly was not agency work. It was just initials and dates lined up in neat rows. Then the window closed by itself like he had taken control from home. It annoyed me. I decided he was probably making some boring budget sheet and hiding it like it was state security. I told myself he was trying to feel important. Around lunch, I met Cade in the lobby. He had come by to talk about a future event with Ravi, but he stopped by my desk first. He asked if Daniel had forgiven me for the late night last week. I said he was still sulking and running off to his little personal meetings. Cade laughed and said Daniel should be grateful anyone like me even came home. I liked that line. It fit the picture I wanted to believe. In the afternoon, a link dropped into our group chat. One of the social girls had made a meme with a small pair of cartoon bells and a caption about weak husbands. She told me it was a joke based on my stories. I typed that my husband's bells rang too soft to argue with me, and they sent laughing emojis. It felt like a sharp but clever line, and I thought it showed how strong I was. I did not think of Daniel at his desk, or of our daughter, or of anyone else who might ever see those messages. Near the end of the day, an email popped up from Ravi asking if I had a minute for a chat. I went into the small glass meeting room, still smiling. He said he wanted to talk about some posts and messages that had been shared with him. He said someone had shown him the meme and my caption about Daniel's little bells. He spoke softly, not angry, but there was a serious tone. He said he was not judging my marriage, but that using my husband's body as a joke in work chats might not be wise. I told him he was overreacting and that it was just humour. I said I was an open person and that honesty was part of my brand. He said there was a difference between being open and turning someone into a public prop, especially someone who had not agreed. I told him Daniel did not even use these apps and that he would never know. Ravi said the problem was not just Daniel. It was also about how other people saw me at work. I left the room feeling annoyed and slightly shamed, so I told myself he was jealous of my popularity. That evening after work, Cade texted me and suggested meeting at the rooftop bar again. He said we could talk about the next event, but I knew that was not all he had in mind. I told myself it was still part of my job. When I arrived, the air was warm and the lights were already glowing. He greeted me with that easy smile and asked if my tiny-tempered husband knew I was there. I said Daniel did not get to approve my calendar and that he had his own little secrets now. At the bar, Cade asked what presentation I had given about Daniel today. I told him about the meme and the line about bells. He laughed so hard he leaned on the counter. He said I was brutal but honest. I said a strong man would laugh it off, and if Daniel could not, that was his problem. Cade said some guys were just not built for strong women. His hand brushed my arm and I did not pull away. I liked being the bold one, the one who seemed to have outgrown her safe little husband. When I finally went home, the lights were low and the apartment smelled like something simple Daniel had cooked. The dishes were washed and stacked neatly. On the table there was a small pile of envelopes, all turned blank, side up. Daniel was sitting with a notebook, writing slowly. He asked how the event planning had gone. I said it was fine and that he should be glad I was building a life beyond this kitchen. He did not argue. He asked instead if we could talk about money. He opened one envelope, keeping the printed side hidden, and asked which bills I wanted to handle and which he should cover. I laughed and said he sounded like a lawyer. I said only people in crisis talked like that. He did not rise to it. He said he wanted things to be clear and fair. He wrote down the amounts we said, calm and steady. I kept waiting for him to beg or explode or ask why I was so distant. He did not. It made me feel cheated out of my usual scene. After we finished, he stood and took his wallet and keys from the bowl by the main door. He carried them to the guest room and set them there instead. I asked why he was moving his things like some single guy in a hotel. He said it was easier this way. His voice stayed flat. When I peeked into the guest room later, I saw a thin binder on the dresser with a label that said, Utilities. It was thicker than just a few bills. As I stepped closer, he came in behind me, closed it with one hand, and said he was just organizing important papers. I said nobody our age needed that many organized folders unless they were trying to make a drama. He did not answer. He only picked up his phone from the desk. A notification blinked and vanished before I could read it. His face was calm but far away. I told myself he was playing some kind of cold game and that it was my job to win it. The loft party felt like the perfect place to fix my image after all the quiet looks at home and at work. Owen and Layla always had the best guests, the best music, and the kind of energy I thought I deserved. When we arrived, people greeted me first. They asked about my latest event, about the rooftop bar, about my posts. Daniel stood slightly behind me, smiling that small, soft smile. I decided I would show everyone that I was the star, and he was just background. Inside the living room, the air was warm and loud. Music thumped, people leaned over the kitchen island, and someone had already spilled a drink on the rug. I moved through the room with my drink and my best laugh, talking about clients and late nights and the crazy world of events. Daniel stayed near the wall talking to Owen about work. It bothered me how easily he blended into the furniture. I wanted him to stand out or disappear. This quiet middle place annoyed me. After a while, Cade arrived carrying a small case with his headphones and gear. He hugged me in that casual, work-familiar way, and then he greeted Daniel with a quick nod. Cade asked if the famous husband had forgiven me for all my late nights. I said Daniel was still acting like a martyr and walking around with his little notebooks. Someone nearby laughed. Daniel heard and his jaw tightened for a second, but he did not say anything. That almost made me more irritated than if he had snapped. As the night went on, people drank more, and the conversations got louder. Someone started a silly game, asking who would win in a fight between different couples. Layla joked that I would probably beat anyone. Owen looked at Daniel and asked if he would step in if someone bothered me in a bar. Daniel said he did not like fighting and would rather de-escalate things. People chuckled politely. I felt a hot need to push it further, to make a mark. I said that if a fight broke out, Daniel would probably hide behind me. People laughed harder at that, and I saw Cade watching from behind the DJ table with a smirk. Daniel looked at me and asked quietly if we could leave that kind of joke alone. I felt the room listening. I did not want to look like a wife who obeyed her boring husband in front of my friends. I wanted to look strong and untouchable, so I stepped closer to the center of the room. With everyone looking, I raised my voice just enough. I said that Daniel did not get to tell me what jokes to make because his little bells were too small to argue with me anyway. The words came out smooth and sharp. The room gasped and laughed at the same time. A girl near the coffee table covered her mouth. Someone else pulled out a phone, holding it at chest level, pretending to check messages but clearly recording. Daniel's face went pale and then blank. He did not shout or grab me or make a scene. He just said in a low voice that I had gone too far, then turned and walked toward the balcony door. I told myself he was being dramatic, but my heart was beating fast. People around me started to shift away like they did not want to be too close. Rowan sent me a message that the line had killed and added flame emojis. I used that as proof that I was funny and bold, not cruel. On the balcony, the air was much cooler. I found Daniel leaning on the railing, looking down at the street. He said he did not understand why I wanted to hurt him like that in front of everyone. I said it was just a joke and that a man with real confidence would have laughed. I told him he needed to grow up and stop acting like a victim. He listened, then said he had seen enough tonight. He did not shout. He just said he would go home and that I could stay if I wanted. I watched him walk back through the living room, passing people who pretended not to stare. Cade caught my eye and lifted his brows like he was impressed with my brutal honesty. I took another drink and told myself Daniel was weak. Later, near the kitchen, Cade showed me his phone. The clip of my Little Bells line played with the music thumping behind it. My voice sounded louder than I remembered. Cade laughed and said I had no filter and that it was hot. I laughed too, but something under my ribs tightened. When I finally left the party, the building hallway was quiet and smelled like cold air and cleaning liquid. My phone buzzed non-stop with group chat messages and short clips of my joke. I told myself it was fame in a small circle and that this was power. In the ride home, I saw a picture Rowan had sent of me, standing in the center of the room, one hand out, everyone watching. She wrote that this was my main character moment. I clung to that idea and pushed away any other thought. The parking garage at our building was almost empty when I arrived. Daniel's car was already parked, facing the street instead of the wall. The angle looked strange to me. As I walked past the storage area, I heard a dull hum, like a shredder running in some distant office. My phone buzzed again with a new message from Cade, replaying the clip and sending laughing emojis. I felt a twist of both pride and worry. I told myself the pride mattered more. Inside, the hallway lights were dim. As I reached our floor, I saw Daniel coming down the stairs in a clean shirt, keys in his hand. He did not look at me for a second, then gave a small nod. He said he had to pick something up in the morning and that he wanted to get a head start. His voice was calm, almost flat. When he checked his phone, I saw a small calendar entry flash before he locked it. It said meeting, personal 11:20 a.m. Then the screen went dark again. The Sunday lunch at the family restaurant was supposed to fix things, at least in my mind. Helen suggested it in her polite way, saying it would be nice to see Nell and to have a meal together. I told myself she wanted to smooth everything over and that everyone would agree I was just joking. When we arrived, the long table was already half full with his relatives, talking in quiet voices. They greeted Daniel with warm smiles and hugged Nell. They greeted me too, but it felt more careful. We sat down and I tried to take the loud side of the table. I talked about work and events and funny things clients did. I did not mention the loft party clip, even though my phone still had it saved and people were sharing it in different chats. A cousin on Daniel's side glanced at me and then at him. After a while, that cousin said someone had seen a video online where I made a sharp joke about my husband. He said it like a question. The whole table shifted slightly. I laughed and said we joked about everything, that Daniel and I had always done this, and that we did not take ourselves too seriously. I said it was good to be open and not fake. Helen looked at me for a long second. Then she asked Daniel quietly if he was okay. He said he was fine, and that he was making plans to fix things. He did not say what plans. I jumped in and said he was overreacting to one silly joke and acting like I had attacked him with a knife. No one laughed. Helen put her fork down and said some things in a marriage should not become public performance. She said there was a difference between teasing and stripping someone's dignity in front of others. Her voice was calm, almost soft, but it cut more than any shout. I felt heat rise in my face. I said this was what people with old ideas always said, that confident women scared them. I said the real problem was how men could not handle strong humour. A couple of people looked away. Owen, who sat near the end, suddenly found his napkin very interesting. Nell sat between Daniel and me, swinging her legs. She asked why everyone was serious. I said we were just talking. Daniel squeezed her shoulder and told her the grown-ups were sorting things out. After a moment, he asked if I wanted him to take Nell outside for a bit so I could talk with Helen. I said there was nothing to talk about except that people needed thicker skin. He did not argue. He took Nell's hand and walked her toward the small play corner of the restaurant. Watching him go calm and steady made me strangely angry. Later that week, he took Nell to the park after school. I came along because I felt like I should show I was still the main parent. The playground was bright and noisy, full of kids running and shouting. Daniel pushed Nell on the swing and she laughed. I sat on a bench checking my phone, seeing that the Little Bells clip had been shared again in another chat. There were comments calling me cruel, comments calling me brave. I focused on the brave ones. When Daniel came over to the bench, he said he would not be going to Owen and Layla's next gathering. He said he did not want to stand in a room where people laughed at him and watched me tear him apart. I told him he was being dramatic and that couples sometimes joked like that. He said it was not a joke to him. He added that he would still take Nell if she was invited to anything, but he would not come as my prop again. I called him controlling and said he was trying to punish me. He just looked at the kids on the swings and said he was tired of repeating the same cycle. His phone buzzed in his pocket and he checked it quickly. I saw the words, meeting, personal 3:45 p.m. from 2 days ago in the notification list before he cleared it. Since that afternoon, he had started keeping his phone always near him, face down but close, always charged. He also spent more time with Nell alone. He took her to the library, to the park, to Helen's place. When I asked if he was trying to turn her against me, he said no, that he was just making sure she had stability. He said someone in this house needed to be steady. A few days after that, I went to pick up Nell from school, and Daniel was already there, standing near the gate with his hands in his pockets. The school pickup line was a row of tired parents and restless kids. As I walked up, I saw two mothers lean close and whisper. One of them glanced at me and then looked away quickly. I could guess what they had seen. It takes only one person to share a clip in the wrong group, and suddenly you are the show, not the mother. Nell ran toward us, backpack bumping against her. She looked between us and asked if we were still mad at each other. I said we were just busy. She frowned and said some kids had asked her why I made fun of Daddy's bells. My stomach turned. I told her that kids could be mean and that they should mind their own business. Daniel knelt down and told her, in a calm voice, that none of this was her fault. that sometimes adults did unkind things and had to figure them out. He did not point at me, but he did not defend me either. I felt exposed. That night, I walked into the hall and saw him at the small desk outside the guest room. He had a neat stack of papers there, all flipped so the blank sides showed, and a small binder labelled bank. His side of the hall looked cleaner than it ever had. He asked what day I usually booked Nell's checkups, what her doctor's full name was, which number to call in an emergency. I said he was acting like we were about to die. He said he just wanted to be sure he had all the information. His voice was balanced, no tremor, no begging. As I stood there, I noticed the wall calendar by the door. A date 3 weeks ahead had a red circle around it. I asked what it meant. He closed the calendar with a quick motion and said it was just a reminder. I told him secrets were immature and that if he wanted to leave, he should just say it. He looked at me for a long time and then said he was not leaving Nell. He did not say anything about me. That night, I tried to pull him back into the shared bed. I said we needed to reconnect, that all this distance was not healthy. He said he would sleep in the guest room, that he rested better there, and that it was better for everyone. I accused him of emotional abuse, of using silence as a weapon. He did not argue. He just picked up his phone from the table. The screen lit up with a muted call marked private, and at the same moment, Nell called down the hall and asked why Daddy slept in another room. The week after the restaurant, the world felt smaller and sharper at the same time. I could tell more people had seen the loft clip, but no one said it straight to my face. At the supermarket checkout, I stood behind a woman I knew from the school WhatsApp group. She glanced at me, then at her phone, then away again. Her friend leaned in and whispered something, and both of them tried to pretend they were not looking. I could almost hear my own voice in their heads, that line about Daniel's little bells. I told myself they were just jealous and bored. I pulled out my phone to distract myself and, out of habit, opened the shared calendar app. In the history, I saw an old reminder that I had not noticed before. It said, meeting, personal 9:05 a.m. from a few weeks back. I thought about how, right after that day, Daniel had stopped arguing about emotions and started talking about bills instead. He had become calmer in a way that felt like distance, and it annoyed me that he was the one changing without asking. When I got home, he was already at the kitchen table with a small, neat pile of envelopes. He had turned them all blank side up, like they were just random papers, and he had a notebook open beside him. He asked if we could go through the household costs and decide who was paying what from now on. I laughed and said he was doing divorce math. I said only people planning something dramatic made lists like that. He did not react. He said he wanted everything to be clear and fair, for both of us and for Nell. He opened one envelope toward himself so I still could not see any header, and wrote down a number. He asked if I was okay taking this or that bill. I said yes while rolling my eyes, because I did not want to look weak. On his laptop, which sat to the side, a small pop-up appeared for a second. It said file uploaded successfully and vanished as he moved the mouse. When I tried to see more, he calmly closed the lid. I told myself he was trying to look mysterious just to scare me. Later, in the parking garage, I saw him lifting a suitcase and a plastic storage bin into the trunk of his car. The air smelled like dust and oil. I marched over and asked if he was leaving. He said he was moving some clothes and things to a small storage unit because the guest room closet was overcrowded. I said he was playing games and trying to make me panic. He said he was just making sure his own things were in order. Inside the bin, I saw a thin folder and a single USB stick with only a date written on the label. He closed the trunk with a soft thud and locked the car. The car still faced the street, ready to go at any time. That night, in the hall outside the bedrooms, he was again at the small desk. His side was almost too tidy now. A binder labelled home stood next to one marked bank. He asked me, in a level voice, to confirm Nell's doctor's full name, the address of her clinic, and the school office number. I said he was talking like someone who planned to vanish. He said he was talking like someone who refused to be unprepared ever again. I called him cold. He said he was just done begging me to take things seriously. I tried to pull him back into a normal fight. I said he was turning into a stranger, that he spent more time with his mother and with Nell than with me. I said he was punishing me for being honest and funny. He listened, hands loose by his sides, and then asked what days I could handle drop-off if our schedule changed. The way he phrased it made my skin crawl. He did not say if, he said when. I called him dramatic, but my voice shook. The next evening in the kitchen, I finally snapped. I told him he had made me the villain to everyone, that he was acting like my one joke was worse than all his years of being small and passive. I said he was the one who killed attraction, who let himself shrink. He let me pour everything out. When I was done, he took a breath and said he would not argue about my story anymore. He said I was free to tell it however I liked. Then he added that he would handle things properly now and that I would get clear information soon. As he spoke, his phone lit up on the table. An alarm banner slid across the screen. It said, "Paper drop 2:30 p.m." and blinked once before he turned the phone face down and walked out of the room. He asked me to meet him somewhere neutral to talk, and I thought he finally wanted to fix things. When I saw the big stone steps and the glass doors of the courthouse, I told myself he was just being dramatic. Inside the lobby, the ceiling was high and bright, with hard floors that made every step echo. Daniel stood near a column, clean shirt, folder in hand, looking like he was waiting for a meeting at work. Helen sat on a bench a few meters away, watching like she did not know where to put her hands. I walked up and asked why we were here instead of a cafe like normal people. He said this was where serious things were handled. I said serious was not the same as cruel, and that dragging me into a courthouse over one joke was insane. Before he could answer, a woman with a clipboard walked over and asked me to confirm my full name and address. I did it without thinking, still focused on Daniel. Then she handed me a stack of papers and said I was being served. On the top page, I saw words like divorce petition and temporary orders. There was a section about who stayed in the apartment for now, another about which bills each of us would pay, and a schedule that cut Nell's week into blocks of time between mother and father. My hands shook. I said he was ripping the family apart because his pride got hurt. He said calmly that he was protecting Nell and himself the only proper way left. The process server asked me to sign a small box to show I had received the papers. My pen scratched against the form while people in the lobby pretended not to stare. Daniel turned toward the clerk's window with his folder, not looking back at me. In the quiet that followed, I heard a sharp sound as a stamp came down on the top page inside that folder, as if someone was sealing the story without asking what I wanted it to say.